Hello. Hello, this is the My Artifact episode number 3454. Today's date is 16th of June 2025. It's been almost like a morning at 10:21 p.m. Alright, we directly jump into the question. Let's go. Alright, question is, why should I work with local supplier? Okay, yeah, what is exactly local supplier and what exactly is this thing? Let me explain everything. Okay, yeah. First of all, let's just talk about this question. Where is this question came from and why is this question? What exactly is this meaning of this question? Yeah. Okay, so this question is actually associated with a business startup. Okay, yeah. Why I'm asking this question to myself is because of that. Okay, in future I wanted to establish a startup, a business. Okay, and I don't really have any prior information regarding about every details regarding about business and stuff like that. Asking these questions to myself is a kind of like a bit really familiar about the concept, understand regarding about what will gonna happen, what will gonna I will gonna face and things like that. So it's a kind of like a simply understanding myself. And okay, yeah, so let's just jump into the question says that key, why do I need to work with a local supplier? Okay, yeah, like what is actually importance of this kind of like a somebody local supplier, things like that. Okay, yeah. So what is actually local supplier? Yeah. Okay, okay, imagine you are kind of like a somebody doing a, you are kind of like a doing a business as a bakery business. Okay, yeah, means like that you are making cake. Okay, yeah, cake, birthday cakes or engagement cakes, these are cakes. Okay, yeah, so you are running a bakery. Okay, yeah, and your business is actually make a cake. Okay, and you will sell that cake to the shop and people will buy the cake for the birthday parties and yeah, multiple stuff. All right, yeah. So what do you really require to make that cake? Egg. Egg is really essential. Okay, yeah. Then basically atta. Okay, flour is also really essential. Cheese, sugar. There are a lot of stuff. I'm not really sure what is actually stuff needed for making cakes, but there are so many stuff needed. Okay, I'm just taking egg, flour, and let's just say sugar. Okay, yeah, sugar is a kind of like a thing. These are kind of like a main three ingredient. Okay, yeah. So you need those ingredient. Okay, yeah, you need those ingredient every day. First of all, another thing is that you need those ingredient in large quantity. Okay, yeah, as well as the quality too. Okay, yeah, because you are kind of like a making cakes almost like a 50 cakes per day. Okay, yeah. Let's just imagine 1 kilo cake. Okay, yeah, so that means you are making almost like a 30 kilo cake averagely. Okay, yeah, if it is kind of like a some event or any kind of like a special request or things like that, it went up to 50 kilo of cake. Okay, yeah, but still you are making, let's say, 30 kilo cake. Okay, yeah, we are not talking about kind of like a some so much. Let's just say imagine 30 kilo cake. Okay, yeah, like you are making almost like a 30 cake, each cake is a 1 kilo. Okay, yeah, so you need a kind of like a sugar. Okay, yeah, how much sugar do you need? Let's just imagine that if I want to make a 1 kilo cake, okay, then probably it took me almost like a half or maybe 200 gram of sugar, probably 200 or 250 gram of sugar probably. Okay, yeah. So 250 gram of sugar I needed for make one cake. If I do the calculation, it might let me do the calculation. Okay, let me open up my calculator. Where the fuck is my calculator? Okay, yeah, so let's just say there is a 250 grams of sugar do I really require to make one cake. So if I want to make 30 cakes, so into 30, so that means 7,500. So that means I need 7.5 kilo of sugar every single day. Okay, yeah, 7.5 kilo of sugar every single day you really required. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is the one thing that you really required. Okay, yeah. 7.5 kilo of sugar. Then another thing is egg. Okay, how much egg do you really require to make a cake? Let's just imagine that probably half a dozen. Okay, almost like a 6 egg does really required. Okay, yeah. So 6 into 30, that means you need at least like a 180 egg. Okay, probably like 180, na? Yeah. Like wait, let me do the calculation. I'm really wrong at calculation. Okay, yeah. So let's just say 6 egg really required to make one cake. So if I into 30, so probably 180 egg. Yes, 180 egg really required me every single day. That means I need almost like a 200 egg. Okay, like why does you are taking 200 cake? You just why does you are need a 200 eggs? You just take like you just really required only 180 eggs, na? Yeah, somewhat something like a probably happened. Some eggs might be wrong or kind of like a broken or whatever it is. There are a lot of things will can happen if you are kind of like a doing work every single day. Probably little bit further it should supposed to be essential. Okay, yeah. So let's assume that I need a 8 kilos of sugar every single day, 200 egg every single day. So these are, let's just say, just two ingredients for kind of like a simple understanding for that stuff. Okay, yeah. So you need this thing every single day. Okay, yeah. And where did you get those things? Okay, yeah. Like probably 8 kilo of sugar. Where will you get that thing? Because if you went to supermarket or things like that, probably it will cost you so much. Because let's just imagine that ki, if there is a 8 kilos of sugar, it would take almost like maybe I'm talking about Indian point of perspective, probably really required 600, probably 500 to 600 rupees. Okay, 500 to 600 rupees for 8 kilos of sugar. Okay, yeah. And 200 eggs, that means it would almost like a 200 egg. Each egg is kind of like equivalent to the 7 rupees. So 7 into 200, that means you are taking almost like a 1400 rupees, probably. That means 1500 rupees. So you are spending almost like a 1500 rupees for egg, and 600 rupees, 600, 700 rupees for sugar every single day. Can you afford that thing? Well, probably if I'm kind of like a selling a cake almost like a 300 or like a basically 600 rupees of kilos, it might gonna afford. But problem is that I need those ingredient every single day. Another thing is that I need those ingredient in lower rate. Okay, because if I'm buying this thing in very huge quantity, then probably just like that na ki I it's just like basically what exactly happened that ki I won't be able to go every single day to kind of like a shopkeeper and say that I need a like a this egg, and every single day I would gonna buy sugar and things like that. No, I have to buy at least like a maybe 15 days of worth of stuff. Means like that ki, let's just imagine I need a 200 eggs. Okay, yeah, let's just not 200 eggs. Okay, let's just take 180 eggs. Okay, yeah. So if I need to buy for 15 days worth of material, so probably how much it cost? Okay, like how much does it material it really required? Okay, for 15 days. Okay, let's just kind of like do the calculation. Okay, yeah. So how many eggs do I really required? 180 eggs. So 180 into, I'm actually taking for 15 days. So let's just say 15. So I need almost like a 2700 eggs. Okay, yeah, that is like a really, let's just imagine 2800. Okay, yeah, 100 eggs for kind of like ups and down things like that. So 2800 eggs really required. Okay, yeah. And then sugar, how much sugar do I really required? Well, each day really required me to almost like a 7.5. So 7.5 kilo into 15, that means, oh my god, okay, yeah, 112 kilo, almost like a 113 kilo, means 115 kilo of sugar. Oh my god, that is like a really huge amount of sugar for just 15 days. Just 15 days. So basically, is this thing you need a very high, like you do really require so much amount of material, okay, which is cost so much, and probably you need like a really high consumption, as well as you need to get those material as low as price, okay, because you won't be able to buy almost like 100 kilos of sugar from supermarket, probably not, okay, yeah. So you have to rely on kind of like a somebody local supplier, vendor, or things like that. Why not kind of like somebody supermarket? Well, probably this thing, supermarket are meant for customer. You are not a customer. You are a business person. You need a material from wholesale price, not kind of like a somebody customer price. Because if you are started paying customer price, then probably you will gonna lose your profit. So it is really essential that ki you need to buy your material at wholesale price. Okay, yeah. Wholesale price means like that ki you are buying so much amount of material. Okay, when you buy so much amount of material, then probably it's kind of like a profitable for the vendor to the local supplier, that it would kind of like a give you little bit discount. Okay, yeah, which is kind of like a benefit for their business, and it is kind of like a benefit for your business too. Okay, yeah. So you need almost like a maybe 120 kilo of sugar. Okay, 120 kilo of sugar, that is like a really lot. Okay, so what should you do? Okay, yeah, where should you get that sugar? Probably you just go to the kind of like a local supplier or a local vendor. Probably, I'm not really sure where you get almost like a 150 kilo of sugar. That is too much amount of sugar, okay, yeah. But you need to kind of like a make a contact with that particular person. Make sure that that local person, that local supplier is kind of like a somebody around you म्हणजे around your surrounding or things like that. Means like that, I'm not kind of like a somebody, you shouldn't supposed to be seek a kind of like a somebody person who is actually selling some sort of sugar and things like that, who is kind of like a selling almost like a 200 kilometer away or 100 kilometer away. No, don't do that. Like make sure found a kind of like a local supplier, which is local supplier means like that he kind of like a local which is close to you. Okay, yeah. Why I'm saying this thing? Because of that ki when you are kind of like a making a product or you need a material every single day, okay, yeah. So probably there would be a lot of things happen, because every day, not every day is kind of like a something same. Sometime rain happens, sometimes something happened, sometime material won't able to come in time and things like that. Okay, yeah. And if you are kind of like a your wholesale market vendor is kind of like a living almost like a 200 kilometer away, then probably transportation cost is included. Okay, yeah. And transportation is not only cost included, but in the transportation there are might be so many wrong thing will gonna happen. Maybe accident happen, or maybe your material got lost, so many things. Okay, yeah. So it is really essential for you to run a business. You have to be kind of like a seek the local market, seek the kind of like a local vendor, seek the kind of like a things that the wholesaler person who is kind of like a selling those ingredient to you, okay, selling those material to you, which kind of like a somebody you are buying almost like a very huge number of quantity. So that means it will give you a discount, which is kind of like a some really benefit for you as well as benefit for them too. Okay, yeah. When you are kind of like a doing this thing, there are so many advantage of it. Okay, first of all is that transportation cost is drastically reduce. Okay, yeah. Then another thing is that ki, you are kind of like a supporting local business. So in the end, you grow, other person who is actually living, that person is also really grow. Okay, yeah. And basically what exactly is this thing? When you are kind of like somebody have a relation, means like that you are building a business and things like that. So you will have a relation with that particular person, and that relation will kind of like somebody really good, and it will kind of like somebody really add benefit to you for your business, because at some times you might not have a money to give your vendor, but because of you are already did business for almost like a last 2-3 years, so that vendor would understand that, and he will kind of like a giving them kind of like a material for free, or kind of like a something that key for like a like a like basically not free, it's kind of like giving them kind of like a say that yeah, let's just give the money when you will get something like that. Okay, yeah. So it might be kind of like something really good and things like that. Okay, So this is also another thing is that ki because of the transportation happened really less, pollution will also happen really less, as also maintenance is also happen really less, as also you are kind of like a growing locally. Okay, yeah, it also kind of like a giving the help to the local business, which kind of like a somebody improve the entire local city. Okay, yeah, like in the end it is kind of like a giving the so much advantages. But there is also another problem too. What kind of like a problem? Okay, another thing, you are need those ingredient. Okay, yeah, and probably you don't really have a kind of like a wholesaler market which is close to you. Let's just imagine that ki you are at village. Okay, yeah, and you are at village, and probably there is a kind of like a something really required vendor which is almost like a 70 kilometer away from you. Okay, yeah, 70 kilometer away from you. So what should you supposed to do? Well, in this particular situation na, you have to be kind of like a realize that ki does it really essential, or maybe there is also another thing is that ki like like I'm not gonna say in this thing that ki like you don't really have any kind of like choices. Okay, if you want to run a business and things like that, then probably yeah, might be this distance is might be something really okay for you. Okay, yeah, if you're kind of like a in village or things like that, and then material is kind of like a something coming from like a distance, then probably it will cost you some sort of money because you don't really have an option. Then you could do that. Okay, yeah, or else if you have this problem, then make sure that ki you have to buy the material for almost like a for a month, not for kind of like a week or 15 days, no, for a month. Okay, yeah, if you are buying material for a month, then probably you really require a storage. Okay, yeah, cooling storage or kind of like a lots of storage, not only the build the storage but as well as make a such a storage which is kind of like a something the your material will not gonna spoil, like a cooling storage or everything. Yeah, you just have to do the everything, do the maths and something like that. Okay, yeah, or else you have to move your business close to the vendor. This is you could do that. Okay, yeah, but what about the customer? Well, yeah, like there is kind of like a some ups and downs. Okay, yeah, you just have to figure it out which one kind of like a some option is actually kind of like a good or not good to you. Okay, yeah, but kind of like a somebody supply, kind of like a somebody rely on local business is somewhat something really good. Okay, yeah, but I have another question to should I supposed to ask. Okay, yeah, like why would I supposed to be only focus for only one vendor? Like let's just imagine that ki I am kind of like a buying a sugar from this particular vendor. Okay, yeah, and I am buying this sugar from this particular vendor for almost like a 2 year. Something happened to that vendor, and he won't be able to selling me a sugar. Then what would I supposed to do? Yeah, then find a new vendor, right? Then probably it will kind of like a somebody take time now, like a take time, or like a like basically is this thing na ki how do I supposed to handle this thing? How like okay, that is also really good question. Okay, first of all is that ki do not put all your egg in one basket. That is really good phrase to understand for kind of like a somebody running the business. Means like that if you wanted to kind of like a somebody find a kind of like a something vendor to get your ingredient or material. Okay, yeah, you shouldn't supposed to be rely only on not only on one vendor. You should supposed to be rely on multiple vendors. Okay, yeah, because you need a sugar. Okay, obviously. So what should you supposed to do? Okay, this week or this month you will gonna buy the 100 kilos of sugar from this vendor. Next month you will gonna buy the sugar from another vendor. Okay, yeah, try to make the difference, try to do figure it out things, something like that. Okay, yeah, you might kind of find something very different. Okay, yeah, like a sugar quality and things, and that you will gonna figure it out. Okay, obviously you need to figure it out regarding about which vendor is actually close to you and stuff like that. There is lot of stuff need to be figured out. Okay, yeah, but it's kind of like something really good. Okay, yeah, like basically having multiple vendors, which is kind of like something really helpful for you, for your business, for his business too. Okay, yeah, what I'm trying to tell you, what is actually the kind of like a local what is actually question, sorry, I forget the question. First question is that ki why should I work with a local supplier? It means when you work with a local supplier, you are kind of like doing a benefit not only for yourself, but as well as you are doing benefit for that local supplier too, as well as your surrounding, as well as your environment, because transportation happened really less. Okay, yeah. As well as you will generate the economy in the local sector. Okay, yeah. You will kind of like create a job in local sector, which is how do I create the job? Well, probably someone does really require to transport your material from one place to another place, na? Okay. So basically, for the transportation, you might gonna rely on someone to transport those things safely, right? So probably you indirectly you are creating a job, okay, to that local person who is kind of like a delivered material to you. Okay, so this is also really essential. So this is why local market or local supplier is really essential for kind of like a something building a business and things like that. But dude, there are so many website or so many e-commerce website are kind of like a helping you to kind of like a get your local supplier or get your local material or wholesale material at your place. It's kind of like you put the delivery and things like that. Why should I supposed to be rely on kind of like a local supplier if I get all the material online? Yeah, that is a really good question. Oh yeah, like if you get the all the materials like a India Mart is a kind of like a some wholesale supplier. Okay, yeah, whatever the stuff that you need, you just have to kind of like buy those stuff with very huge quantity. You will get the discount and it will kind of like a delivered to you within a 24 hour, which is really good, really great. So why should I supposed to be rely on local supplier? Well, probably is this thing that key India Mart is a kind of like I'm not kind of like a saying this thing that you should supposed to buy and you buy from this material or you shouldn't supposed to buy on this material. No, when you are running a business, you are kind of like a testing multiple things. Okay, yeah, you shouldn't supposed to be rely on one thing. You try multiple things. Okay, yeah, what kind of like a gain profit from you? That is what matter to you. Okay, yeah, not only profit but as well as the quality of the product, quality of the material is also really essential. Let's just imagine that ki India Mart is a kind of like a e-commerce website who is kind of like a selling the product in wholesale price. Okay, so you need a kind of like 100 or 200 kilos of sugar to you. So you just click the buy. Okay, yeah, you paid the money and within a couple of days that kind of like 100 200 kilos of sugar is at your home. Okay, yeah, that is really good, that is really great. Okay, yeah, look at the quality, look at the things, look at the kind of like assembly is this thing that what is really wrong or things like that. As well as you just have to think about that key when you buy 200 kilos of sugar, what kind of like a charges should I supposed to be pay? Because there are other charges too, like a transportation cost. Okay, yeah, GST, goods and service tax. There are so many taxes are also include too. You just have to figure it out because sometimes na those taxes are much more than the material cost. So you just have to figure it out that thing. Okay, because in the kind of like assembly in the e-commerce website like a India Mart or things like that, they are kind of like a showing you a material price, but they are not kind of like a showing you the kind of like a tax are included when you buy in kind of like a large quantity. Okay, because when you buy 200 kilos of sugar, that means a 200 kilo is a really big sugar, dude. It's a really lot. Okay, yeah. So so it does kind of like a take taxes. Okay, yeah, goods and service taxes, transportation cost, everything. And after all those things, you just have to make sure the sugar that you are get delivered is a really good quality of sugar or kind of like something really wrong. Okay, or you just get scam or things like that. So there are multiple things, because let me tell you one thing, why does like I'm not kind of like a somebody saying this thing that India Mart is a kind of like a not selling the good product. No, they are kind of like a selling the good product. Definitely they are selling the good product. Okay, yeah, but look at the kind of like a something the price point now. Okay, yeah, let's just imagine you are kind of like a running the company and there is a guy who really required 200 kilos of sugar. Okay, yeah, so probably how do you supposed to get the profit from this supply chain, from this kind of like a stuff? You need to add the taxation, you need to add this and that, something, so many stuff. Okay, yeah. So from you just have to understand from each point of perspective. I'm not saying that India Mart is actually saying very wrong product. No, they're actually saying really good product too, with a really wholesale price, really good at. Yeah. But it's just like that. You just have to understand what is actually right for you. Okay, yeah. Probably is this thing, na, ki if it is work for you, it is kind of like a work for your business. That sugar quality is really good. It add the value of your product, and it kind of like a gain some sort of profit while doing this, increasing this chain on things like that, like a supply chain. Then probably you could do this thing, because the transportation cost is actually include like transportation cost is like they will actually take care of everything. Okay, the India Mart will take care of everything regarding about the transportation and things like that. You just have to click the buy, and then rest of the things they will cover. So there is a lot of stuff. There is prices ups and downs and things like that. You just have to figure it out. Okay, I'm not saying is this ki you shouldn't supposed to do this thing, you shouldn't supposed to do that thing. Is a local supplier good, or kind of like some e-commerce website are good? It's depend on you. It's depend on who you are, what kind of like a simply the uh, money that you willing to spend. Okay, yeah. How much smart you are. Okay, yeah. How much do you generate, or what kind of like a somebody quality of product that you want. There are multiple things, multiple stuff. Okay, yeah. So you just have to figure it out, work with your team, find out which sugar is really right for you for your cake and things like that, and get the best product, best quality of the sugar from whatever it possible. If it's possible from the local supplier, that is really good. If it is kind of like a somebody best for it is kind of like a good from kind of like a some e-commerce website, then you could do that thing too. It's up to you how do you supposed to get. Okay, you just have to look at the number as well as the value that you are creating. Value means the quality of the product, the cake I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. So this is what I'm talking about, kind of like a something uh local supplier and things like that. All right, all right, I should supposed to be end here. This is it, and thank you.